Have you ever stepped into someone's home and immediately noticed how clean it was? Not because they were expecting visitors, not because they had just spent hours cleaning, but simply because it always looks that way. And it makes you wonder, how do they manage it? What's different about them? Are they more disciplined? Do they just have more time? Or do they somehow enjoy cleaning more than the rest of us? Here's what I've come to understand. These people aren't just cleaner, they operate differently. And I don't mean that in some abstract or mystical way. I mean it in a very real psychological and neurological sense. Someone who tidies their home every day is functioning from a completely different mental framework than someone who only cleans when things spiral out of control or when guests are coming over. Today, I want to break this down for you because what you're about to see is that having a clean home isn't just about appearances. It's about your mental state, your identity, and your relationship with your environment. And if you've ever felt drained, anxious, or overwhelmed in a messy space, this might completely change how you see your surroundings. Let's start with this. Your brain doesn't clearly separate your inner world from your outer one as much as you might think. Your environment constantly sends signals to your nervous system. In environmental psychology, there's a concept called cognitive load, the amount of mental effort your brain is using at any given time. And here's the key point. Clutter increases that load. Even if you're not consciously paying attention to it, your brain is. A pile of laundry, unopened mail, dishes in the sink, clothes on a chair, your mind registers all of it as unfinished tasks. And unfinished tasks are mentally costly. Research from Princeton University showed that physical clutter actually interferes with your ability to focus. It overwhelms your visual system and makes it harder for your brain to process information. So a messy room isn't just annoying, it's actively making you less focused, less sharp, and more mentally tired. Now flip that. When your space is clean and organized, your brain can relax. That's why people who clean daily aren't just tidier, they're calmer, clearer, and more focused. Their environment supports them instead of working against them. But there's something deeper going on here. When we talk about people who clean daily, we are not really referring to people who enjoy scrubbing floors. And let's be honest, who truly likes scrubbing the floor every day or vacuuming all the time? We are talking about people who have realized, consciously or not, that keeping their environment in order is one of the most dependable ways to maintain a sense of control over their own life. Think about how much of life is outside your control. You can't control the economy, the weather, work situations, other people's behavior, the result of a basketball match on TV, what happens in traffic, or your boss's mood in a meeting. Most of life is unpredictable. Most of it is unpredictable. For many people, that unpredictability creates a subtle, ongoing anxiety, a constant undercurrent of stress that never completely disappears. But your home, that's yours. It's something you can control. The condition of your kitchen counter, whether your bathroom has been cleaned, whether your bed is made, those are completely within your control. And each time you take action on your environment and bring it back to order, you send a message to your nervous system that says, I am in control here, I can manage things, everything is okay. That sense of relief you feel after cleaning isn't random. In psychology, this ties into something called the locus of control. People with a strong internal locus of control, those who believe their actions genuinely influence their outcomes, tend to feel less anxious, more motivated, and tend to have a greater resilience. And one of the simplest ways to strengthen that mindset and reinforce your internal locus of control is by taking control of your immediate environment. Wipe the counters, make your bed, clean and put away the dishes before they start to pile up, and you'll feel the sense of relief. Now let's talk about what I believe is the real key to understand this behavior. Identity. People who clean their homes every day don't do it primarily because they enjoy cleaning. Let's be realistic. Who really enjoys tidying their home every day? Most people would probably say they don't. They do it because over time, through repeated actions, by building the habit, and by seeing the results, they've developed a sense of identity. They became the type of person who keeps a clean home. Behavioral psychology shows that we act in alignment with who we believe we are. So if you think you are a disorganized person, a messy individual, someone who just cannot keep things tidy, what do you believe will happen? You'll let things build up and tell yourself, well, that's just how I've always been. But here's the good news. If you see yourself as messy or disorganized, you'll act accordingly. But identity isn't fixed. Identity is built through action. Each time you wipe the table after dinner, each time you sweep up the crumbs you've dropped, you are shaping the identity of someone who looks after their space. Every time you make your bed in the morning, you are strengthening the belief that you are someone who follows through on small commitments. Every time you clean up after yourself, you're reinforcing a new version of who you are. Do that often enough and your brain has no option but to revise its understanding of who you are. This is what identity-based habit theory, grounded in cognitive dissonance research, suggests. Repeated behaviors shape how you see yourself. And once an action becomes part of your identity, it feels natural and automatic. The objective isn't to push yourself to clean every single day forever, but to do it consistently enough that you stop being someone who has to force themselves to clean their home and start being someone who just does it. Let me explain why this habit is particularly effective when it becomes part of your morning routine. Neurologically, just after waking up, your brain is in a calm and receptive state. Your cortisol, the stress hormone, naturally rises in the morning, which actually creates a window for focus and neuroplasticity. Your brain is literally more able to rewire itself in the morning than at any other time of the day. So what happens when the very first act of your day is to clean a surface, to make your bed, or to wipe down the kitchen? You are doing multiple things at once. First, you are taking advantage of that neurological window to strengthen a behavior that will eventually become automatic. Second, you are creating what psychologists refer to as a completion loop. Your brain gets a small but genuinely strong dopamine boost when you complete a task and notice the results. A made bed, a clean sink, a wiped counter. These are visible signs of a finished action, and they feel rewarding to the brain. Third, and this is the most important part, you are creating momentum. Admiral William McRaven, in his well-known commencement speech at the University of Texas that went viral, shared something incredibly simple and meaningful. If you want to change the world, start by making your bed. Because when you make your bed in the morning, you have already completed the first task of the day. That gives you a small sense of satisfaction. It motivates you to accomplish another task and then another. And by the end of the day, that one small task will have grown into many completed ones. The compound effect of daily cleaning is not just a cleaner home. It is a more productive day every single day. Now, let's be honest for a moment about something, because I know some of you listening right now are thinking, guys, I'm just a messy person. I've always been messy. My parents were messy, and my apartment has always been messy. That's simply who I am. I understand you. But here's the truth. Clutter isn't neutral. It's often a reflection of what's going on internally. When life feels chaotic, your environment tends to mirror that. When someone is experiencing depression, their environment is often the first thing to decline. Their apartment becomes untidy. Dishes pile up unwashed. Beds remain unmade. The clutter on the outside reflects the chaos inside. Research published in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin found that people who describe their homes as cluttered or full of unfinished projects tend to have higher levels of stress hormone cortisol throughout the day compared to people who describe their homes as restful and relaxing. In other words, the state of your home directly affects your stress levels every hour you spend in it. So if you've been wondering why you feel exhausted when you get home from work, why you can't seem to unwind, why your evenings feel tense even when nothing especially bad happened that day, look around. Your space might be contributing more than you realize. Your environment might be the very thing quietly draining your energy. Here is something I want you to stop believing right now. People who clean every day are not more disciplined than you. They haven't somehow reached a level of willpower that you haven't yet achieved. That is a completely wrong perspective. And I want you to stop thinking that way because it simply isn't true. When you watch someone with a consistently clean home, you are not seeing discipline in action. You are seeing a system. You are seeing automation. You are seeing someone whose habit has become as natural as brushing their teeth before bed. It is simply what they do. Just like brushing their teeth, as I mentioned, and that is what you want to build for yourself. Not more discipline, but more automation, because discipline is a limited resource. You can run out of it. We have all experienced being very strict with ourselves in one area, only to fall apart in another because we used up all of our willpower. Automation doesn't work that way. Automation is self-sustaining. A study from the European Journal of Social Psychology published in 2009 found that it takes, on average, about 66 days for a behavior to become automatic and shifting from something you must consciously choose to do into something your brain simply does on its own. So the goal is not to force yourself to clean every day for the rest of your life. The goal is to push yourself to clean every day for long enough that it stops being something you have to force. That is the transition. And once you reach it, the habit becomes self-sustaining. There is another aspect to this that is not discussed enough, and that is the sensory experience of a clean environment. Because tidying your environment every day isn't just a cognitive advantage. It's a profoundly physical, sensory, and almost nervous system level experience. Think about what it really feels like to step into a clean room. The visual clarity, the sense of openness, and the lack of that subtle background visual noise that clutter tends to create. There's something about a clean, organized environment that signals safety to your nervous system. It communicates that things are under control, that everything is all right, and that you can relax. For highly sensitive individuals, those who tend to absorb the energy and emotions of their surroundings, this effect becomes even stronger. If you've ever entered a cluttered room and instantly felt your anxiety increase, or stepped into a clean, minimalist space and noticed yourself relax, that is your nervous system reacting to environmental cues. For these individuals, keeping a tidy space isn't just a preference. It can truly be a form of mental health care. There's a reason places like hospitals, meditation centers, and luxury spas, environments designed to encourage healing and calm, are kept extremely clean and orderly. It's not only about aesthetics, it's about how the brain responds. A clean environment actively supports your brain's ability to regulate itself, settle down, and recover from the stress of the day. There's something I find truly fascinating here, and I want to share it because I think it might completely shift the way you view this habit. When people clean, they are often doing much more than simply tidying their physical surroundings. There's a reason so many people instinctively reach for a broom or vacuum when they feel stressed, anxious, or emotionally overloaded. And honestly, has that ever happened to you? When you felt restless or dissatisfied and suddenly started reorganizing your space? The act of cleaning, its rhythm, its physical engagement, and its immediate visible results is one of the most powerful forms of behavioral activation recognized in psychology. Behavioral activation is a clinical concept that refers to using action to influence emotional state. When you are anxious and remain still, your nervous system can stay stuck in that activated state. But when you get up and move, especially to do something with a clear start, middle, and finish, you allow your brain to release that built-up tension through action. The dishes get washed, and something within you begins to ease. People who clean daily often discover this without consciously realizing it. They develop a habit that supports them emotionally as much as practically. The physical process of bringing order to their environment helps restore a sense of order internally. The outside world and the inner world start to reflect and reinforce each other. This becomes especially impactful at the end of the day. If you spend even 10 minutes tidying before going to bed, wiping surfaces, putting things back in place, resetting your space for the next morning, you are essentially creating a psychological boundary between the day that has passed and the night that is beginning. You are telling your brain, the day is complete. I've handled what needed to be handled. Now it's time to rest. So let's get practical, because I know some of you are listening and thinking, I understand this, but I still don't do it. I still let things accumulate. I still tell myself I'll clean later, and that later never arrives. So how do you actually start? The first thing, and this is absolutely crucial, is to reduce the barrier to starting. One of the main reasons people struggle to clean consistently is that they wait until everything has piled up. A sink full of dishes, a heap of laundry, and then when they see the scale of what needs to be done, they can't even bring themselves to begin. Big tasks are naturally easy to postpone. That's why the goal is to never let things reach that point in the first place. Catch messes while they're still small. Wipe the counter right after cooking. Wash dishes immediately after eating. Put items back as soon as you're done using them. When clutter doesn't have the chance to accumulate, the effort required stays minimal. At that point, you're not really cleaning anymore. You're simply maintaining order. The second step is to link it to something that already exists in your daily routine. Behavioral scientists call this habit stacking, though in simpler terms, it's what people have always done when building good habits over time. The idea is not to create an entirely new habit from nothing, but to attach a new action to an established cue. For example, you already make coffee every morning, so you can wipe the counter while it brews. You already brush your teeth at night, so you can quickly clean the bathroom sink right afterward. The third step is to make the process enjoyable. It might sound obvious, but this is where many people struggle. Don't treat cleaning like a punishment or something you're obliged to endure. Anything your brain interprets as punishment will naturally be resisted and avoided. So the question becomes, how do you make it feel enjoyable? Put on music that you enjoy, something that elevates your mood or helps you relax, depending on what you need in the moment. Prepare yourself a drink. Turn the process into a small ritual that you actually look forward to rather than a task you want to avoid. I want to end with this because I truly believe it's the most important point in this entire episode. Your home is not just a place where you live, it is a physical reflection of your standards. And don't forget that it mirrors what you believe you are worthy of, often without you even realizing it. When you start caring for your space, cleaning it, and sending yourself the message, I live here. This is what I deserve. Something shifts. Just picture coming home after a long day in the city or at work, feeling drained and being welcomed by a calm, organized home. Be honest with yourself. That feeling is good, isn't it? People who clean their homes every day are not obsessive or rigid. They are not spending hours scrubbing surfaces. They've simply chosen to value their environment, to recognize that their inner world and outer world are connected, and that their surroundings influence their mood, energy, and sense of self. Doesn't that feel true? So here is what I'd like you to try over the next 7 days. Choose one area of your home, just a single space, and take care of it every day. It might be the kitchen, the living room, or your bedroom. It's up to you to decide where to focus. Maybe it's the room you use the most, or perhaps the one that tends to bother you the most. Commit to that for 7 days and then tell me it hasn't shifted something within you. Tell me it hasn't changed the way you feel when you wake up and enter that space in the morning. Tell me it hasn't given you a bit more energy, a bit more clarity, and a bit more confidence that you are someone who follows through on small promises to yourself. Because that's really what this is about. Not just a tidy room or a made bed. It's about becoming the kind of person who shows up for themselves. Someone who cares for their home, and in doing so, nurtures their inner calm. I'd really love to hear about your experience. Do you find it easier to live in disorder or in a well-kept space? And do you agree with what you've heard today, and why? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, feel free to subscribe, and don't miss the next one. See you in the next one.